Stay tuned till the end of this video for special bonus advice that I'm giving to lawyers everywhere. We've got a yelling judge. Now, as a lawyer, I want to know what that's about, okay? So here we go. Let's just jump right into it.
Yes. At this time, the defense rests.
What that means is that the defense has put their case on. Now, in a trial, the plaintiff goes first. So the plaintiff has already put their case on. The defendant gets a chance to put a case on, and when you're done, it's this old-fashioned thing you do. You say, we rest. It means we're not calling anybody else. Now, you can still examine witnesses called by the other party, but when you rest, you can't put any more evidence on. So that's what they just did.
Other than putting on records.
Oh, okay. That was a mistake. If you say you rest, you can't then say, but we want to put some records in. Good grief. If you have records to put into evidence, you do that before you rest. So these people, they need to talk a little bit more.
We're not playing chess. I mean, will you please take the jury back in? Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so she just told the bailiff to take the jury out, and here's why. When a judge is presiding over a case, the judge can tell you what they think at any time. I mean, they try to not tip their hand because they want to give a fair decision. But when there's a jury involved, the judge's role is to just be like, oh, nothing. Like, the jury's not supposed to look at the judge and say, oh, I think I know which side she's on. The judge is there as a referee just to make sure that both sides are playing by the rules, and she doesn't want the jury looking at her and saying, oh, I think I know who should win. So she's about to dress these people down. I know it. I know she is. So she's got to get rid of the jury first. This is going to be good.
Name your records. 2B, Nicholas Cruz Henderson, episode 1 record. Let me just stop. State, are you going to have anything ready for today?
No.
We're
last told us
there was 80 witnesses.
We're waiting for 40 more witnesses.
I just want to say, this is the most uncalled for, unprofessional way to try a case. You all knew about this, and even if you didn't make your decision till this morning, to have 22 people plus all of this staff and every attorney march into court, be waiting as if it's some kind of game. Now I have to send them home. The state's not ready. They're not going to have a witness ready. We have another day wasted. I honestly, I have never experienced a level of unprofessionalism in my career. It's unbelievable.
So Judge, if we had any pretrial matters, you asked us to be here at 9:15. We were here at 9:15 to discuss pretrial matters. I have been practicing.
Okay. Before I hear the rest of what this lawyer has to say, I just want to give some legal advice to her. Don't say it.
You know what? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear
Well, Judge, you're insulting me on the record in front of my client, and I believe that I should be able to.
Okay, you can do that later. You can make your record later, but you've been insulting me the entire trial. So, blatantly, taking your headphones off, arguing with me, storming out, coming late intentionally if you don't like my rulings. So, quite frankly, this has been long overdue. So please be seated. You can receive the evidence. I will receive the evidence, and then you can put whatever you want on the record at the end. Go ahead.
First of all, a moment of silence for the defendant in this case, because there is a person in the courtroom who hired this lawyer and did not know that this lawyer was going to get dressed down by the judge. I mean, this is not a good situation. When the judge says, you've been unprofessional this entire time, you've been treating me badly this entire time, that lawyer can anticipate that any sort of close call is likely going to go against her client the rest of this case. Like, that is not a good situation. And I understand where the lawyer's coming from, because you're like, how could you insult me in front of my client? Like, basically, this is like if you're married and you don't want to argue with your spouse in front of your kids because you don't want to say that she's wrong or whatever. This is a little bit like that. Like, let's maybe get the parties out of the room and let the judge say what she really thinks. But to do it in front of the defendant is, it hurts a little bit.
Later.
The defendant's attorneys filed a motion asking the judge to recuse. Recuse is just a fancy word that means to disqualify herself. Judges are held to very, very high standards in our court system, and they have to be in order for people to trust that the verdicts that they render, that the decisions that they make are fair. What happened in this case was that the judge showed very unequivocally that she was mad at the lawyers. Now, maybe on TV you see lawyers and judges spar and it looks like judges get mad. In real life, judges go out of their way to not indicate ahead of time, oh, I'm gonna rule for this side or I'm gonna rule for this side. But instead, they're just like right down the middle, trying to treat everyone fairly. And they have to do that, and it's great that they do that. In a jury trial, it's especially important that the jury not look to the judge and try to ascertain, is the judge feeling a certain way about this case or feeling a different way about this case? And should I try to guess what the right ruling is? Judges don't want juries to guess what the ruling is. They want to look at the evidence, weigh it themselves, then go back into their room after the trial is completely over and sort it out. There are some things that jurors aren't supposed to do. They're not supposed to look at news coverage of the trial. They're not supposed to do their own research. And they're not supposed to talk to each other about what's happening before the case is over. In this particular instance, if you're exposed to the news at all, if you're exposed to the internet, there are stories out there about this trial. There are stories where people have takes, including me, on what the judge is saying to the lawyers. The defendant's lawyers asked the judge to disqualify herself, saying, "You look like you are partial now." And the judge declined their motion. She denied it. And she did that for a couple of reasons. But some of them are principled reasons. I mean, some of them are very practical reasons. The principled reasons are this. She's saying, the things that you said that I did not do them in front of the jury. The jury needs to rule on the case. The jury needs to decide innocence or guilt. I didn't show them the way I'm feeling about the lawyer. Your second complaint is really then that I showed you disrespect in front of your client. Well, your client is the defendant. The defendant is not the one who decides what the outcome is. The defendant is the one who's subject to the outcome. So the judge doesn't necessarily care, and I would argue that the rules don't vest the judge with the responsibility to care what the defendant thinks of his own counsel or what the defendant thinks that the judge thinks of his counsel. Meaning, it's not really relevant if you think that I don't like your lawyer. What matters is, am I calling balls and strikes, being fair, calling everything down the middle, and not showing the jury that I feel one way or the other about this case? The second reason, besides the principled reasons, is way more practical, and that's this. If the judge recused right now, in the middle of the trial, what would happen? You might think, oh, well, another judge would just come in. No. The basis for recusal is the appearance of partiality. Partiality means like having a favorite, picking a side. There's actual partiality, and then there's the appearance of partiality, and judges are supposed to recuse if either of those comes into play. But if you recuse and you say, well, there is the appearance of partiality here, so I'm gonna step away, what happens? They don't have a backup judge that they can come in, number one, so they'd have to start over. And number two, everything that the judge has ruled to date, which is months and months of motions, evidentiary hearings, pretrial matters, all that stuff has to be thrown out. That's called a mistrial, and that is starting all over again. And there's been a lot of time invested into this case. And while judges have to appear impartial and have to be impartial, just because one side says, you look partial to us, doesn't mean that the judge is automatically like, oh yeah, I give up, you're right, I'm gonna step aside. Everyone knows who committed these murders. Her position would be, look, I haven't been partial, I just told you what I actually thought of you wasting people's time. Didn't tell the jury, it's not gonna affect my rulings, but you're disrespecting me, you're disrespecting the court system, you're disrespecting all these witnesses, you're disrespecting the prosecutor, you're disrespecting the jury. I have absolutely no problem with this judge staying in this case based on these facts. I'm actually glad that we got to see a video of this judge sparring with this lawyer because it brings into focus some things that are very critical for our legal system, which is that our judges not only need to be impartial, but they need to appear impartial. I really appreciate you watching the video. Comment any questions, I'll try to answer them. And make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification button and share this video with someone else. And have a great day. Bye.